We open our scene this evening at Rome at night. As the camera opens, we look down to see a carriage, a very familiar carriage, for it had just dropped off. Sorry, one second. It had just dropped off Alfonso Cordon and his master Diego Vasquez in the poor part of the Jewish quarter. And we see the architecture rising in the background and the silhouette of the moonlight as it pours down and bathes the paving stones of the Via Fortina district of Rome. The very elegant reaches of the city is the Via Fortina, frequented by many of the learned of the church's most erudite scholars. In particular, the shop itself, for before long the carriage pulls up in front of Alphonse's bookshop, is a surprisingly pleasant little place, despite the shadowy hours of the Roman night. Its shutters and window boxes are painted a cheery yellow, and as the carriage comes to a stop and the horses pause, we see Robert Despenser III, who had been whipping the horses down the road, climb down from the bucket seat of the carriage, and his cloak falls down around him as his boots hit the paving stones, and he walks to open the door for the woman within, the lovely woman Bianca Despenser. And what do we see as the camera focuses in on the open door of the carriage?
Bianca would step down from the carriage, allowing Robert to take her hand as she descends. She would glance up at the brightly painted shop, taking in its architecture as she scanned the remote area and the street that they resided upon.
Sorry guys, one second. I'm being pulled AFK. 1 minute. Sorry about that, I'm back. As you speak, Bianca, or I'm sorry, as you look at the shop, Bianca, Robert leans in. This is the place. I think it is, anyway.
Bianca would give Robert a solid nod, and she would extend her eyes back to the street. Is anyone on the street?
A few people. The Via Fortina is a very opulent district of Rome. However, the what few people are on the street are sitting in carriages that are rolling by. Otherwise, the street is relatively deserted. There are certainly no prostitutes or vagrants in this district of Rome. The City Watch seems to do a pretty good job of keeping them out.
Bianca would look back to Robert now. Remember what I told you before we left for Rome, my love. We must tread lightly during these times. Now that we know this business is for the Camarilla, darkness could be looming at every turn. And she would kind of squeeze his hand in concern and love as she looked to him for another second.
Robert meets your gaze, and you see him soften as you captivate his eyes, so very human in that moment. One thing that you've never tired of is his very human expressions and the way he looks at you. I would face any darkness to be with you, my love. As he leans in and presses a kiss to your cheek.
Bianca allows him to kiss her cheek gently, and then she focuses her attention on the task at hand. Stepping forward, Bianca would reach for the door handle of the tiny little bookshop and gently pulling it down and allowing the latch to unhook and push forward with her demure force, she would head inside the tiny little shop.
And as you approach the shop, Bianca, you see that golden light glows from the windows, actually spilling out onto the street. Apparently, the bookseller is working late this evening. And as you approach the door and push it open, and it is rather heavy, you see books by the hundreds lining the shelves which cover the walls, while the latest printings sit proudly on a sturdy table in the center of the room. And as you look around, you see a separate section for scrolls, some supposedly from the Great Library of Alexandria, or according to the sign, taking up most of the east wall to the right of the door. All the rest of the wall space, save some windows, is covered in immaculate shelves, bursting with leather-bound books that look far older. And as Robert follows you inside, we're going to change scene. All right. We open scene in the interior of Alphonse's bookshops, and as I mentioned, the sight of books spilling everywhere is what immediately catches your eye. Robert closes the door behind you, Bianca, as the two of you enter the room. There is actually a stout door that you can see at the very back of the front room, and from it, given your senses and your levels of auspex, Bianca, you can smell odors coming from behind the door, the smells of a printer's trade. Some are pleasant, some not. And you see in the front room a long counter of polished oak runs along most of the backed wall. Behind this, you see Alphonse, usually sitting, and he has... He's actually fairly well dressed this evening, certainly for a bookseller. And as you take in the sight of Alphonse, you see that he appears to be a man who was once fit in his youth and is just now starting to go to fat. His black hair curls in ringlets, almost covering up his incipient jowls. Clearly Italian. His skin seems to be a bit pockmarked, as if he suffered a pox when he was younger. Alphonse always wears expensive clothes, even at this time of night. You can see that he prefers the Dutch fashions, as he seems to be under the mistaken impression that they make him look more dignified. These flaws contrast sharply against his polished charm and what appears to be a highly manipulative nature as he smiles and rises from his seat to greet the two of you. Clearly very well dressed and well-to-do, he doesn't look surprised to see you in here.
Ah, welcome, my friends, welcome. Welcome. I am Alphonse de Sarcina. Please, find yourselves well at my shop 1,000 times more.
As he approaches you, his voice is as smooth as the oil in his hair glistening off the candlelight in the shop. He seems very well practiced in bargaining with customers. You can see right away, Bianca, that he is addressing Robert more than you, and Robert takes the initiative to extend his hand, shaking Alphonse's hand in turn.
Good evening. I am Robert Despenser III, the Earl of Gloucester, and I've come this evening to peruse some of your wares.
All right, so what is Bianca doing?
Bianca would take in the sight of Alphonse, giving him a kind of kind smile as she lets her eyes wander to Robert, and the two men interact with one another, and introductions are exchanged. And as Robert speaks of who he is and where they come from, she too chips in. A pleasure, sir. I am Bianca.
Alphonse smiles and takes your hand, Bianca, and kisses your knuckle with his fat lips in the Italian fashion as he does.
Ah, of course. Welcome to my shop, Bianca. So lovely. Are you from Italy?
Bianca would kind of chip up a bit as he takes note of perhaps her accent, and she speaks on. I am a native to Italy, but I have not been to Rome since I was a small child. Me and my husband are here on holiday, you see.
Perfect, perfect. Wonderful. And you, sir, you must be from England. Beautiful country. I have been there many times before. What can I interest you in this evening?
Robert glances at you. Well, you see, my wife's interests are rare books, and we've come this evening to procure some for her, some light reading material for our journey, my love. And Robert looks to you. He seems to be giving you the lead in the conversation.
Bianca would kind of give Robert a knowing glance, but taking it somewhat of a different route, she decides to kind of perhaps put this bookkeeper at ease to some degree before they jump right into the magnitude of what they are really looking for. So she would turn on her charms a bit and look back to Alphonse after a moment. Yes, my husband does speak the truth, but actually, before we get into that, I am in the market for some exquisite prose and blank verse, if you will. I've been simply dying for a copy of Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, and where would be a more suitable place be but Rome to purchase such an amazing work of art? When in Rome, is that not what they say here, darling? She would look to Robert after a moment.
That is the expression as I've heard it, my love. Robert replies. Alphonse looks mildly surprised that they're actually here for you, Bianca, as he comments, My, the lovely lady can read. While you spoil her, my lord. Alphonse looks to Robert, who gives him an indulgent smile.
Well, come then, my lady. I would be happy to show you some passionate verse. There is a new poet, which I think you might like. And
as he goes on to say that, Alphonse continues to take you about the shop and show you some of the things you're looking for. Indeed, his selection is far from subpar, as Alphonse has some of the rarest first editions, and given the relative recent invention of the printing press, you can see that many of them have been duplicated. Although, as I said, the first editions are kept in leather-bound books behind the shelves and seem to be much more rare and in a much more exclusive place in the shop.
Spectacular. Bianca would follow Alphonse, and if prompted, she would take a good look at some of the texts that he might persuade her to purchase.
And they seem to be certainly what you asked for, Bianca, but nothing highly suspicious as far as you can see.
Bianca would placate this man, and she would ooh and ah at certain leather-bound texts that he would hand her, and actually at one point she would even look to Robert and ask for his permission to perhaps purchase one, just so she sort of puts this bookstore keeper at ease. But eventually, after a few moments, she would glance rather methodically back to Alphonse. I wonder. She would pause a moment, seeming to be in contemplation, before looking back to Robert. for a second or so, but then eventually she would look back to Alphonse. Forgive me, sir, I must be taking up so much of your time. It is only that I do wonder, you see, what we spoke of before. I did read a bit of old scripture, or as I recall, I thought it was the latter. And, well, it was indeed rather macabre in nature. Nothing most women of my stature should be reading. However, I did find it quite fascinating. Yet I've never been able to find any texts or manuscripts about it since then. Odd, really. Bianca would pause again, letting her words kind of sink into him with kind of a gentle ease. But eventually she would speak up. And at this point, she would want to try and turn on her presence. If I have to roll for that.
Certainly. Go ahead and spend a blood point, and I believe it is charisma performance. I forget the difficulty on that. I think it is 7.
Okay, give me 1 sec.
Yes, charisma performance, difficulty 7. Though you evoke that otherworldly charm, for some reason it fails to captivate him. You're not sure why it didn't work. And it is somewhat alarming that your powers failed to captivate this man. It makes you wonder if it was something with you or perhaps something with him. But as you nonetheless deliver what is a very convincing line, Bianca, go ahead and roll your manipulation subterfuge. Difficulty is going to be 6. All right, one moment. Despite your very practiced words and charm, Alphonse, though he throughout this discussion, you can tell, like I said, he's very practiced in bargaining, and he is very smooth, and he's a very shrewd man. You can see almost immediately as his smile never wavers, but his crinkled eyes tighten just slightly as you speak, as he looks you up and down.
Ah, of course, my lady. Well, then perhaps we might dispense of this pretense and tell me what you are really here looking for.
He says, folding his hands in front of his heavy belly.
Bianca would kind of give him somewhat of a small smirk. Well, you look like a man of ample knowledge, so perhaps you have heard of it, or anything related. I seem to recall it was about a female known as Lilith.
Ah, Lilith. Yes. I am familiar with that subject. Are you only looking for books on Lilith?
Well, anything perhaps related to her, anything having to do with she would kind of give Robert somewhat of a look. Occult, if you will.
I see.
Alphonse says softly, smiling slowly, as of course talk of such things is almost enough to get you burned for witchcraft these days. It's quite a dangerous subject to bring up. However, Alphonse offers a simpering grin, smiling faintly.
Unfortunately, my lady, I am most sorry. All of my texts on those subjects have been purchased, and my contacts have been unable to locate any duplicates. But of course, there is the printing press I have on site here, and my apprentice is working very hard to produce other copies. Unfortunately, as I said, I am all bought out. If you would please, it is rather late. You should be going.
And he motions towards the door as he bows in his most polite way of ushering you out of his shop.
Bianca would see that he's somewhat in a hurry to kind of gesture her out of his shop, but after she hears that they've been purchased, she would take a step, but then quickly turn. Purchased, you say? Oh, but wait. Perhaps you could allow a quizzical woman just one piece of good news this evening. Who was it that purchased the text from you, if you don't mind me asking?
All right, go ahead and roll. Let's see.
And can I just add, at this point, she would like to try and extend her aspects to perhaps the soul. I think it's the soul reading. Sorry, I muted my mic at that.
Okay, well let's get the social roll over with first. Go ahead and roll your charisma. Yeah, charisma subterfuge. Difficulty is going to be 7, as he seems a bit eager to get you out of the shop.
Is this private?
No, all mental rolls are private. Everything's social and physical is public. It is tough, as he is clearly on his guard, but you do manage to pull it off, Bianca, as he seems to pause in his eagerness to get you out of the shop. And he seems to willing to offer the following, as though it will just placate you, as he seems eager to get you out of here.
It's... Yes, There was a young girl here, actually. A young thing of a girl, surprising me. Perhaps a week ago, who was also looking for texts on a similar subject. She was in just the previous day and asking for books on the same topics. Of course, it filled my heart with regret to send such a lovely lady away empty-handed as well. I sold her a travelogue. It was written in Latin by a soldier who helped defend Vienna against the Turkish hordes, of his journeys from Paris to the Swiss Alps and on to Austria.
A young girl, you say? Bianca would kind of pause a moment, raising a slender, interested brow. What did this girl look like, by chance? You don't happen to have many girls come in here asking for such texts, if you will.
Roll wits etiquette, difficulty 5. Okay, so since that was mental, that was going to be private, but okay.
Sorry.
All right, sent you the results of the roll.
The girl. Well, it's...
And he pauses for a moment, frowning, scratching his jowled chin.
I remember she had a rather piercing gaze and coal black hair. I seem to remember she was wearing something that flounced quite a bit when she walked. I remember really little of her. She was only in here a minute or so. But of course, as I said, I had to send her away. I have been bought out.
Quite interesting. Did she happen to ask who bought you out? I haven't heard yet who might have purchased those books. Perhaps I'd be able to find him and give him a good price for them.
Alphonse looks very nervous as he wrings his hands and looks about the shop.
Oh, well, that is, of course, confidential. You understand, my lady. I have very select clientele who enjoy the privacy that shopping here offers. Privacy I would have offered either of you. These texts, as you well know, will not be well looked upon by the church here in Rome. Yes, but hopefully you will understand my reticence to share such information with you. I cannot, as I must protect the privacy of my clients.
Of course, I understand. Bianca would give somewhat of a solemn nod, taking in what bit of information she did receive from him.
And behind him, Robert is standing nearby Bianca. You see that Robert is motioning to the man with his eyes as if asking you, should I? He looks as though he means to do violence to the man, since clearly he's not giving you the information you need.
Bianca would give somewhat of a refrained glance over to Robert, indicating that she doesn't want any violence to ensue at this moment. She does realize that the shop is over, well, what's the word? It's watched by the city watch, or whatever you would call them. So she doesn't want to draw any attention to them at this moment. But she would give Alphonse another nod, and then she would look down, realizing that she has the copy of Julius Caesar within her hands. Well, I suppose we should leave, but would you not want us to purchase this first before we walk through your doors?
Of course, my lady. Yes. You see how late it is for me. One moment, and
Alphonse turns. I will get you a bill of sale. And as he goes into the back of the shop, he disappears behind the stout oak door at the back.
And while he does this, Bianca would walk over to the small little service desk where he had been standing prior. She's going to, like I had before, she wants to try and use her aspects to see if there's anything odd going on within the bookshop itself.
All right. Your auspex is going to be, let's see. Because I am an excellent storyteller that knows all the rules. All right, so your auspex at that level is going to be read the soul. As you take in the room, Bianca, it's going to be perception, empathy, difficulty 8. Wow, roll those 10s again. As you look around the shop, Bianca, and you open your senses to your supernatural perception, your psychic awareness as you evoke the otherworldly powers of your blood, you have to actually stop yourself from crying out with shock as you see in this very room watching you several shadowy figures that are actually standing. You can see the silhouette, the very faint flicker of their aura, almost like a dying flame. Shadows standing there watching you interact with Alphonse. And as you look around, you see that more of them are on the second floor of this shop, moving about. Always moving, always watching. The spirits in this room don't seem to realize that you have seen them.
As Bianca uses her aspects to reach further into this almost unknown realm, the shadows of these spirits that appear within this bookshop, it does take her back a bit, and her eyes widen some, and her free hand kind of goes to her lips as she looks around, and there is somewhat of a tinge of fear that kind of runs through her spine. She has never seen this many spirits in one place, so she is very taken aback by this. There is some sort of power here. Something is going on here. She's not quite sure what it is.
And Robert, he immediately takes in your expression of shock. He doesn't seem to see anything as he looks at you. My love, are you all right?
Bianca would probably step back some and reach for Robert's arm, somewhat chilled from the experience and the sight of it all. And she would kind of look over to him, and if she knew that Alphonse wasn't immediately there, she'd quickly whisper, "There are spirits in this room."
And as you say that, Bianca, even in a whisper to him, Robert looks shocked as he looks around, almost instinctively, unable to see anything. But as you say that, you see all of the shades in this room have fixed their attention upon you. You see some of them turn in your direction. They're not as very clear to you as to be actual people. They look more like shades that are flickering, weak intermittent auras, almost as if they might blink out of existence at any moment. But they have clearly turned to their attentions upon you.
Bianca, after almost 200 years of this existence, it's not as though she hasn't been aware of these shades, these shadows, which are very much, in fact, spirits. But to encounter so many at once and at such a, serious time in this journey that they're all trying to get to the end to, she would probably look forward once more, waiting for Alphonse, but would speak softly back to Robert, almost in a whisper. "Act natural, Robert. Act as though you don't see anything, even though I know you don't, but just do this for me, please." She doesn't want them, even though it's quite clear some of them have kind of looked her way. She wants to get out of there as quickly as possible, and so she would place the book down on the counter, waiting for Alphonse to hurry along and give her receipt.
And as you do so, Robert straightens slightly, trying his best to appear as though he didn't hear what you have just told him. And as you look after where Alphonse went, Bianca, you see that he's actually left the door open to the back room. Not quite open, but slightly ajar in his hurry to get your bill of sale. And you think you can perhaps see just something beyond the door. There's definitely movement back there, and of course, as I mentioned before, you can smell the smells of the printing press and the pressman's trade, fresh parchment, but also the bilious odor of ink.
Bianca would be standing there for maybe another second or two, and she would notice that her eyes flickering to the side, that there's something in the back room. She just assumed it was, the printing press of the shop. She didn't think that there perhaps was anyone else here except for Alphonse. But knowing how many spirits are in this room and how quickly she is becoming a little uneasy, she does look back to Robert, stay here. And then she takes a few steps towards the back door entrance, calling out, hello? In her curious way, feigning innocence as you were, trying to get a peek as to what's going on in the back.
And as you approach the door, Bianca, it is not without some difficulty, as you actually have to come within feet of one of these spirits. All of them are watching you as you walk through the room and call out, and yet, as you pause before the open door, something catches your eye just beyond, in the back room. You hear the sound of the printing press, and you hear movements within, and then you see him. Lithe, delicate little limbs. His brown hair curls of ringlets in his face. It actually stops you in your tracks, Bianca, as you are suddenly seized at the moment of seeing him. There he is. There he is, your boy, Arnaldo. He is working the press. A handsome little boy with enormous brown eyes and fair complexion consistent with northern Italians. You would know him anywhere. He wears a simple white tunic that is spattered with ink and a pair of breeches and no shoes, making little sound upon the floor when he walks, clearly practiced in not being seen or heard. He appears very thin, spattered in ink. Obvious that Alphonse has been working him a bit too hard. Roll your self-control, difficulty 8, Bianca. All right, one moment. I'll relay the results of that. And as Bianca pauses in the doorway and sees that little boy working the press, go ahead and describe what we're seeing.
As Bianca rounds the corner of the doorway and her eyes fall upon this young man, instantly he isn't some stranger, but he's Arnaldo, her little boy, and something just kind of seizes in her chest as she sees him, and he looks so young. He looks almost cherubic, and even though she knows that he's gone, it's almost like he's frozen in time, just like she is, and he's come from beyond the grave, and she's not sure how, and it takes her almost everything to not fall to her knees as she stands there and looks at him, transfixed and the soft name is pulled from her lips as she speaks over in his direction. Arnaldo?
The boy pauses. He didn't seem to have heard your first call, but as you speak through the door, which is slowly drifting open, he turns to look at you with knitted together eyes. The young man pauses in his work. He pauses for a moment. And as you see in the back of the shop, Bianca, you can see several features. First of all, the fact that the back room is larger than the front and is sparsely furnished. In addition to the door leading to the main shop, there is also a door that apparently leads to an alleyway out of the building itself. Windows are everywhere and wide open at this time of night, apparently in an effort to combat the smells from the press. The walls are bare wood and the entire chamber is positively spattered with ink, along with the little boy. A drying rack for papers in the back of the room as well. The front of this room contains a monstrous printing press, currently in the midst of the typesetting process. The boy is carrying the heavy brick print of the typesets, and he is actually arranging them in place. The small boy was hard at work setting the type, and he seems to have been making frequent mistakes. A large jug of ink rests on the floor by his feet as he turns to look at you.
I don't think you are supposed to be back here, miss,
he says in perfect Italian, halting, however, as he looks at you.
Bianca has barely taken note of anything in the room. She knows the printing press is there, that there's a jug on the floor. These little things, though, they're not really factoring into what she's, beheld right in front of her. I mean, all she sees is her son in this young boy, and immediately she just flutters over to him, and she bends down to kind of get eye level with him, and she moves her hands to his shoulders and holds him kind of not vigorously but quickly in manner, and it in a lot of ways it probably takes the boy off guard, but she can't help but look at him and say, "Arnaldo, my son, what are you doing here?"
The boy seems a little horrified as you approach him and sweep up to him and hold him, as he looks shocked as he's holding the brick print in his hand, and he almost drops it at your shaking and in your exclamation as his eyes go wide and his lip trembles. No, miss, my name is Stefano.
At this, can she try and roll to perhaps pull away from this moment, or is she just going to be enraptured in this?
Well, this, I mean, it depends on your character. I mean, you're quite certain that this is your son. He looks exactly the same. It couldn't be coincidence. At least in your mind.
Stefano? Bianca would be kind of perplexed as to why he's saying his name is something else. No, you're Arnaldo. Arnaldo, that is your name. What? Who told you your name is Stefano?
Uncle! He starts calling out, and we see Alphonse sweeping down the spiral staircase, which in this room leads up to the second floor. Alphonse has a bill of sale in his hands, a bit of parchment, as he looks at you, Giulietta, or not Giulietta, well, perhaps you are Giulietta in this moment, as you hold the shoulders of your son. What is the meaning of this? What are you doing back here, miss? What are you doing with my nephew? Has he bothered you?
Bianca would, she would kind of quickly let go of this boy's shoulders and she would step back and stand up straight once more, just gazing at this boy who looks so much like Arnaldo. It's unfathomable, and in her mind, she's so confused. She doesn't understand, and she would look back to Alphonse. Um, your nephew, sir. I'm sorry. He looks like my son Arnaldo. She kind of suddenly looks very confused, and almost like almost a panic kind of flutters over her eyes as she looks towards the door, and eventually she calls, Robert. She's just very confused in this moment and very taken aback.
And as you call for Robert and try to struggle to reconcile this situation in your mind, Julieta, make a self-control roll, difficulty 8. All right, I will relay the results of that. At that moment, Robert bursts in through the door. What is happening? And he pauses as he takes a step back and sees Stefano. He goes, my God, as he seems to see the similarities as well between the boy and Arnaldo. As the camera pans back to Bianca or Julieta.
In this moment, it feels as though Bianca has been whittled away and Julieta has emerged. And as she looks to Robert, she speaks rather quickly and feverishly. It's Arnaldo, Robert. It's Arnaldo. Do you see? She is just getting very panicked. And she gestures to the boy, and eventually she looks back to Alphonse, and just her eyes lock onto him, and she just feels as though this man has taken her son. He's kidnapped him. And nothing quite makes sense. She doesn't understand how her son is a little boy once more, but there is some sort of foul magic at work here, and the spirits in this place prove it. Something is going on, but she needs to rescue her son. And this man, he's done it. He's the culprit of this all, and she just snaps. And all she can feel is the fact that this man has been keeping Arnaldo from her. This is what's going on in her manic brain at this point. And eventually, what washes over her face as confusion soon turns to complete and utter anger as she lunges forward and is going to attempt to slam this man against the wall.
The last thing you hear is the boy protesting, My name is Stefano, what do you do? And Alphonse's shock as he, my lady, what is the meaning? As you leap at him, Julieta, what do you intend to do to him?
Julieta is clearly has clearly taken over this moment, and she has nothing but pure contempt for whoever this man is. She, is having the urge to just totally kill him and rip his head off, but something she wants to try and fight it.
All right. Well, your initial attack has already come underway, so roll your strength brawl as you lunge at him and attack him. Yeah, strength brawl. All right, as you, one moment, lunge at Alphonse. Miraculously, he seems to get a hold of himself just in time to see you lunging at him and attacking him as he gets his thick arms up, and he actually stops you from bringing him to the ground as his thick, meaty hands clamp down around your shoulders, and he looks between you to Robert, and he says, "What is the meaning of this?" shouting as he holds you at arm's length as you continue to try and lunge at him, Julietta. Of course, you haven't augmented your body with blood yet, but you know at any moment you might be able to. And as you struggle to get a hold of yourself, go ahead and roll your self-control. Difficulty is going to be 9. You're pretty agitated right now.
What's Robert doing?
Robert is standing at the back of the room. He looks totally shocked. Like, this is all went down within like 3 seconds.
What did you want me to roll?
Roll your self-control, difficulty 9, because you said you were going to try and fight this urge to murder this man. Okay, roll that 10 again. You just barely managed to come back from yourself and get a hold of yourself. The grip he has upon you seems to be a physical sensation that shakes you back to yourself. You are still quite convinced that this is your son and that Alphonse has captured him, but you don't know. What I mean to say is you managed to catch yourself and pause for a moment to consider the wisdom of murdering him.
Bianca, grapples with this internal struggle she's having. She really feels as though this boy is her son. He is her son. There's no other explanation for the similarity. But she realizes, and this is a very odd thought, having just wanted to totally rip this man apart, is that this man is a liar, but this man has also been keeping her son, and he must have brainwashed him. So all her son knows is this man, and to kill him in front of her son would be horrible. And in some twisted way, that's what ends up emerging in her brain at that moment. So she, with all of her last little bit of self-control, she manages to subdue herself. But eventually she pulls away.
And just as you do, Bianca, just as you pull away, as you try to pull away from him, you hear Robert's voice at the back end of the room. "Unhand her!" as he thunders across the room and charges where Alphonse has you in his grip and almost completely takes the book merchant off of his guard as Robert runs forward. One moment. Oh, not good for Alphonse. Not good at all.
While this is happening, Bianca yells to Robert, "Robert, stop!"
Robert has attacked Alphonse, has leaped upon him practically, charged across the room with his supernatural power, and actually lifted him up into the air with both his hands. Alphonse is squealing and shrieking and kicking his legs as Robert holds him up high in the air, his teeth bared and his eyes flashing as he brings Alphonse down on the ground and slams him into the floor. And you see Robert begin to drop his fists on the man's face over and over and beat him in the chest and the neck and the face as he begins to pound him. As he's attacking Alphonse, what are you doing, Julieta?
I mean, Julieta is probably just standing there screaming at Robert to stop hurting this man.
You will not touch her! You will not touch her! He begins shouting over and over, and the boy, Arnaldo, cries out, "Ah!" And he turns to try and run from the room. Julieta, you cannot bear to see the thought. You cannot bear the thought of losing your son again as he tries to run from the room.
Julieta, as she's, focusing on Robert, she hears Arnaldo scream in panic, and he looks like he's turning to run, and I mean, it's quite accurate in the sense that she feels as though if he gets away, she's losing him all over again. Something really horrible just kind of like clinches in her chest, and she immediately tries to take those quick steps needed to grab a hold of him and keep him steady against her chest before he completely takes off.
All right, at this point, everyone's going to roll initiative as we have basically entered into a combat situation. So go ahead and roll, Bianca, your initiative. It's 1d10 plus your alertness, plus if you have any celerity. All right, so as we finished rolling initiative, we are going to begin with Alphonse, who has actually managed to get his fists up as he tries to resist. He tries to resist Robert, who is currently beating him bloody. I mean, Alphonse has. Well, actually, that was bashing. Alphonse didn't get a chance to soak. So one moment, we'll see how well he's taking his beating. Not well at all, actually. Not well at all. he is he's clearly wounded as his face is smashed, as those giant hammers that Robert calls fists are coming down, empowered by the power of your blood, Julieta, as he beats and cracks, and you hear something crack as he beats Alphonse in the face, and Alphonse begins struggling and crying out as he tries to resist as best he can. Although he is clearly overpowered and outmatched by Robert very mightily, you can see that right away. Yeah, he doesn't. I don't think he has a chance. Wow. Ties go to the defender. So Robert still manages to keep a hand on him. But just barely. Alphonse actually almost gets away. He twists away out from underneath Robert, and he begins crawling across the floor, crying out, "Stefano! Stefano!" as blood pours from his nose, reaching for his nephew. Robert is back on him, however, pulling and dragging him back across the floor, his hands scraping the floorboards. Bianca, you see Stefano means to run from the room. It is your turn.
She's, like I said, going to attempt to grab him.
All right, roll your strength brawl. Difficulty 6. Oh wow, that's a botch.
I love my rolls today. They're just awesome.
Okay, so what happens, Bianca, as you try to go forward to get Stefano? We will get to in a moment. That is, it is now Robert's turn. Robert is currently beating the prone Alphonse de Sarcina. And does 3 levels of bashing. Alphonse can try and soak. Robert's fists come down, and though he's not hitting him quite as accurately as before, Robert is still yelling, "You will not touch her! You will not ever touch her!" as he begins hammering on Alphonse's back and the back of his head and his face, and he actually grabs Alphonse by his greasy hair and begins slamming his face into the ground over and over as you hear a sickening crunch as his face hits the pavement, or not pavement, but the wood of the shop floor, and blood begins forming out from underneath Alphonse. Alphonse reaches out, trying to get away, trying to fight, anything to do. Stefano, as it is now his turn. Bianca, as you rush to try and grab him, Stefano twists out of your grip, and as you do, Bianca, you actually fall. You actually go prone as you try to grab him, as he twists out of your grip as you try to reach for him. The camera focuses on Bianca as she falls and tries to grab the little boy. What are we seeing?
Arnaldo, wait! Julieta, she has him, and then she falls, and she kind of catches herself upon the wooden floor, and her eyes dart upwards at the back of the boy as he probably runs out.
And he is going to try and make a run for it, although he has to navigate a horrifying scene. Not going to be easy. He does manage to twist out of your grip, Julieta, and he actually flees in the opposite direction. He runs out of the door and sprints away as Robert continues to throttle Alphonse. You can see that Stefano is clearly meaning to run out of the shop. He's actually made it into the main room. He's not actually out yet. As Stefano flees, Alphonse, meanwhile, he continues to weakly struggle, but his wounds are too great. He's not actually able to do anything, so we're going to roll a chance die, because his wound penalties have reduced his pool, like, so badly that he won't be able to do anything. So, chance die time. Nope. He's under Robert's grip, and moaning weakly through thick gobbets of blood that are pouring out of his mouth. He's hopelessly stunned. Bianca, it is actually your turn now as the camera turns to you, and you see Arnaldo, in your mind at least, sprint out of the room and run away.
Julieta pulls herself up and runs to the doorway. She sees him running. She calls out to him. But, I mean, this is total chaos. And eventually she kind of feels as though she needs to regain herself. I mean, they came here to get information and all hell has broken loose. She immediately is going to look back to Robert to see what's going on with the bookkeeper, and she's going to scream at Robert to stop.
All right, roll your charisma. Your charisma leadership, we're gonna say, to see if you can get his attention. Robert is in a rage right now, to see if he can even hear you. Difficulty's gonna be 8.
Is that public?
Yeah, it's social. So charisma leadership. Despite yourself, Bianca, you do manage to get through to him. You see Robert pause, and he looks up at you as we take in the scene now. Is one moment. As we see this horrifying scene unfold before us, as Robert is now standing over the prone and nearly unconscious Alphonse de Sarcina, who is crippled from his injuries. He looks like he can barely crawl. He moans weakly with bubbles of blood pouring out of his mouth. His face is a ruinous mess. Robert stands over him, his fists dripping the bookseller's blood, looking at you, Bianca, with wide eyes, is that like a little boy reprimanded.
My love? Where's the boy? Where's Arnaldo?
As he says, as he looks around the room. The camera pans back to Bianca.
He's gone. He was scared. Why did you not listen to me? Look what we have here in our hands now. She gestures to the horrible mess that is on the floor, that is Alphonse. And she looks back at Robert rather haughty.
But he laid his hands upon you. I thought you would be pleased.
Robert looks at you completely confused, and maybe even a little hurt at your words.
You should have controlled yourself. I was doing just fine on my own. I love you, but really, look what you've done here. We must leave at once.
But what about what we came here to get?
Alphonse moans weakly as the two of you talk. He seems to be struggling to turn over on his back. You see actually pieces of his teeth laying in the blood on the floor.
Well, doesn't seem like this man is going to be able to give us any more information now, does it? She kind of sternly looks to Robert, and then she makes her way past the bloodied mess of Alphonse on the floor. Um, Come, she says to Robert, walking out of the printing room, and just trying to really pull herself back to reality here. I mean, Arnaldo is still on her mind, but she knows that they can't stay here. The watch will be here any moment. Um, but who knows how this even pops into her brain. As they're making their way through the actual bookshop, she pauses before they get to the door, and looks to Robert. We should check his desk, see if there are any receipts from this person who purchased those books. Come, help me.
And as you say that to Robert, he quickly follows after you, stepping in the pool of the bookseller's blood, not even noticing as Alphonse moans weakly from the ground. He twists around. The last you see of him is he actually twists around and manages to lay flat on his back, groaning in pain. As the two of you walk into the front room, you see that Stefano has actually not ran from the shop. He is standing in the very center of the room, very still. And Bianca, is your Auspex still active?
Yes.
As you come through the room, Bianca, and into the front of the shop, you are greeted with a horrifying sight as Stefano, the little boy, or Arnaldo, in your mind, is surrounded by all of these shades, and one of them is drifting up behind him, and he seems frozen in fear, his soft brown eyes wide, as the spirit seems to enter his body and fill him up. And you're shocked. Robert doesn't seem to be seeing any of this. He just merely says, Arnaldo, behind you, as you see the spirit enter Stefano's body, and you see its aura fuse with his. Stefano goes blank, his eyes slack, as he walks over to one of the lanterns nearby, near to the wall of the books and the mountains of parchment, as he, with the wide, slack, blank stare, reaches out and grips the lantern. And at that moment, you hear his mouth open, and you hear the voice of an aged, gravel-tongued man.
Silentium sapientia est.
But just before he smashes the lantern into the wall, and the flames leap, immediately igniting the room as the parchment and the books catch flame. You see the spirit leave the boy's body, and he collapses on the ground, only a few feet from the flames, as they begin to leap about the room. Bianca, what are you doing as fire begins to set to all these parchments and all these books?
As this moment transpires, she is completely frozen in her spot, her hand kind of wavering in front of Robert's body as the two of them stare at this boy who looks so much like Arnaldo. And as the spirits surround him and he's taken over, and this voice of someone, some complete stranger, comes out of his lips, was that Latin?
Yes, it was indeed.
Is there any way you can convey what he...
Yes, I will translate for you now.
Okay. She takes in what he has said, and she's completely... this fear has already kind of resided in her at this moment, but when the lantern hits the wall and the flames engulf it, that her inner beast just instantly hisses backwards, and so too does her body as she steps backwards from the heat of the flame, and immediately she looks back to the boy, and she knows that they need to get out of here quickly.
The boy has actually collapsed on the ground, limp, as though he were a puppet no longer in use. You see he is laying only feet away from the flames. You know that the fire will consume him if he is left laying there.
Robert, grab the boy, she says, ordering him to go and grab, in her mind, it's a very weird thing to describe, but it's in and out of her thinking it's her son. So she, orders him to grab him, and she tries to collect herself. She immediately goes back to the desk, and she's just going to do just a few seconds of quick search to try and see if she can come up with that receipt.
All right. As the flames begin to spread around the bookshop and the parchment begins to curl and they roar higher and higher, this entire shop is a tinderbox, Bianca. You see that right away. And as you run, where are you going specifically to try and find information?
Sorry. Bianca is running to the little bookshop, service desk that Alphonse would stand behind. It was kind of, it was in the bookshop area, like in the back.
All right.
I'm assuming yeah.
Yeah, it's in the front of the shop. And as you sprint in that direction to the service desk, the flames begin to grow closer and closer to you. Bianca, make a courage roll, difficulty 7, to see if you can approach the flames that are near the desk. Actually, as you near the flames, Julieta, and you see the fire, you see your own death in the flames. Your beast will not allow you to come near the fire. As you go near it, and you actually, as you botch this roll, you go into full frenzied rot Shrek as you hiss and you bare your fangs, and you turn and tear out of the shop. You need to get out of this shop as soon as possible. That's all you care about. As the beast takes you over. Julieta, describe what happens as the flames roar higher and you try anyway to find any way to escape.
Well, Bianca just, she freaks out and books it to the back of the store, hopefully to a back door or something to escape. I'm assuming. I mean, she's not going to be able to go through the front door, so.
No, the front door is completely clad in flames. And as you tear out of there howling, the camera focuses in on Robert, who is shielding himself from the flames with his cloak as he runs forward to try and gather up the fallen body of Stefano. One moment. Miraculously, Robert manages to do that. He actually jumps over a falling stack of books that bar his way to the boy, and even though the fire begins to consume his cloak, he runs over and he grabs Stefano, pulling the 10-year-old boy up into his arms and wrapping his cloak around him. As the flames continue to climb up his body, Robert turns to run from the shop, holding the boy in his hands. Thick smoke has begun to choke this shop as the fire roars out of control. And as the flames leap higher, and Robert turns to follow after you out the back, Julieta, or Bianca, rather, As you emerge into the alleyway outside, and you see the flames begin to consume the shop, to come out of Rotshrek, Bianca, make a self-control roll, difficulty 7, as you are now further away from the flames. You're far enough away that you can try and get control of yourself. You're completely lost in Rotshrek, Bianca. You turn and you flee. You tear off into the night. Robert emerges, calling your name. Bianca! Bianca! As he comes out of the shop and he throws his cloak off, which is on fire. As he looks around, the boy limp in his arms, his eyes wide. You see the horses in the carriage, which were parked outside. They have begun to take off and whinny as the carriage goes wild. And they charge off down the street as Robert is left behind with the boy. And as we fade away from the bookshop, we end our scene as Bianca has fled off into the night of Rome in full-fledged Rotshrek. And that is where we follow her as Bianca continues to run through the streets of Rome, wild-eyed and full of terror from the fire that she had come so close to. Go ahead and describe what we're seeing as Bianca runs through the streets of Rome in the full throes of the beast.
I don't know. I mean, I don't even know what Rotshrek is. What is this?
Essentially, and this is one of the first times you've actually experienced this, Bianca, the beast has... it's like frenzy. You've experienced frenzy before, but it's the opposite. It is instead of anger, it is the beast's fear of being consumed. It's the beast's survival instinct. Your fangs are out, your eyes are wide. The beast is taking complete control of you, Bianca, as you flee through the streets of Rome. And the only thing you can do is just hold on for the ride, as the beast has full control of your body. You tear past unsuspecting passers-by who get out of your way as they see this woman become animal, tearing through the streets. Some of them gasp at seeing a glimpse of your face, your fangs bared, as you hurtle down alleyways and run as far away from the flames as you possibly can. After a few minutes of running, Bianca, make a self-control roll, difficulty 6, to get control of yourself.
I'm sorry, what? Self-control?
Yeah, difficulty 6. Having run probably perhaps a mile away from the fire, although you can still see it in the distance, as clearly the whole shop is consumed by now. Bianca, you manage to gain control of yourself as the beast slides back into your mind. The beast is still howling with fear as your Rotshrek, the red fear, is still very recent and clear in your mind, but you manage to find yourself in an alleyway of Rome as you pause to gather yourself. Go ahead and tell us what we're seeing as Julieta comes out of that fear.
Well, Bianca, she's kind of ducked into an alleyway, and her body's, leaning against the stones of a wall, whether it be a residence or a tavern or whatever. She's not quite sure, but she leans against it, and she's kind of fallen to her knees, her skirts and her silks fluttering about around her as she slowly pulls back the beast and tries to regain some semblance of composure after running for what seems like miles, though it probably wasn't even that far. she's never, like you said, experienced that. It's very foreign to her. It feels quite like frenzying, but in the same bit, it's not. It was very different, very scary, and um, she is slowly regaining her composure, but the fear is still kind of lingering in her chest as she's looking around alarmingly. Uh, she's never felt that before, and it's very unnerving. But eventually, she tries to pull herself up, holding the stones behind her with her hands as she rakes her body forward and eventually um, turns around and she kind of would tilt her head to the side to peer past the alleyway to see if she can see anything or perhaps Robert.
And despite the very great difficulty he had in tracking you, you before long you hear Robert's voice, Bianca, calling out over the city, as you hear also other uproar going on in the streets of Rome, as apparently the news of a fire has got out, and a fire in the Via Fratina is not common, as this is a very elegant part of Rome, part of town. It's not like the slums where fires are fairly common. You hear the shouting of men and the alarm being raised. As you turn around and you hear the sound of his voice, Bianca, as you turn, you see Robert distant down the street. He has left his cloak behind, wearing his fine clothes underneath, which smell like smoke. You can smell even from this distance. And you see that he's carrying the boy who is limp and unconscious in his arms.
Once Bianca hears his voice, and she makes eye contact, I should say visual contact with him, she immediately would trace her way through the alleys to him, kind of running up to him. Robert, you're safe.
Yes. I have Arnaldo.
Robert looks down at the boy, who lays unconscious in his arms.
I've saved him. I've saved our boy.
Robert reaches up and strokes his soft brown hair, and as he does so, you see, Bianca, a horrible burn on Robert's hand. Nearly his entire hand has been cooked by the fire. It is completely red. You see boils the size of apples raising up on his forearm and his hand, still trembling with the pain.
You've burned yourself. Bianca would take hold of his arm, being careful not to touch the wrist or the hand area. She examines it, and then she looks back to Arnaldo for a moment. You did. You saved him. Thank you, my love. She looks up to Robert a moment and gives him somewhat of a serene look of mostly contentment, I guess you could say. She's happy that they're both alive. Then she looks back to Robert. She looks back to Arnaldo and then looks ahead. She knows that there's probably some chaos going on as the fire is far behind them, and people are probably running towards there to try and get the flames, wash the flames away. So eventually...
Actually, as you stand there, you hear the alarm of the city watch, and you hear people rushing all around, and off in the distance you see the soft glow of the fire against the Roman night. As Robert looks at you,
what happened in there? What was that?
Bianca tries to quickly explain. I'm not sure. It felt almost like the beast when I frenzy, except I was So afraid. I was afraid of the fire and I couldn't control myself. I'm so sorry I left you.
No, my love, no. Don't. What is important is that you're safe, that our boy is safe.
And he reaches up and he cups the back of your head, Bianca, and he pulls you close for a kiss, which is actually interrupted by another cry from the watch as Robert turns around and you hear footsteps running in your direction off in the distance.
We have to get out of here. We can't let them see us.
Bianca would nod. I agree. We should head back to the hill where our estate is.
Robert nods and turns to sprint off into the night with you, and that is what we see as the camera lifts high up into the Roman night air, and we see Robert and Bianca running through the streets with Robert holding the limp form of Arnaldo. Or is it Stefano? And with that, the scene fades out. All right, guys, and with that, I think we're going to take a quick break. Yeah, so we're going to take 10 minutes.
Damn, that was intense.
Right?
Wow.
The dice are not loving Sam tonight. I don't know if you noticed.
Wow.
And I'm also tired, which probably doesn't help, so I'm sorry if my role play is, like, not up to par, but...
No, you're doing good, sweetheart. I just feel sorry for you because your dice are hating you.
That was actually, no, that other roleplay we did was a shit show. That other one that happened to us, remember?
Where Lothar
that was pretty
killed us.
bad. So I just tried to keep reminding myself of that and kept saying, well, no, it could be worse. It could be a lot worse. That's what I kept telling myself, even though that was pretty bad. That was awful. Nothing went smoothly. It all went to shit, but whatever. What are you going to do?
Well, I mean, nothing really, beneficial came out of it, but it was still a really cool scene.
Yeah, it was entertaining.
And now I have some strange boy who I think is my son. I should have never looked in that back room. I just should have just stayed there. Everything would have been fine.
Guys, I kind of kidnapped this kid.
Yeah, how am I supposed to explain that to you people? You're like, I guarantee everybody's character is gonna look at me like, what the hell? Like, what?
Sometimes you go out for books and come back with kids.
Are you having
hate
fun?
it when that happens, man.
Are you having fun playing Clan Malkavian, babe?
Not in this moment, no. I'm really not. Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
I'll be right back.
Whoops, that was my bad. That didn't interrupt the recording, did it?
No, we're in the middle of a break anyway.
All right, cool.
I'll be right back.
Yeah, that was. I thought it was a good scene. I thought it was really cool. That was me.
I mean, it might not be a total loss.
I don't even remember what I learned. What did I learn? I learned that a girl came into the bookstore looking for these books, and that someone else purchased them. That is literally what I learned. I learned nothing else. Oh, and there were spirits in the bookshop, and these spirits said something to me through my son. That's all I learned.
Your son that's not your son.
Right.
Wait, okay. This is out of character knowledge for me, of course, but she learned that a girl purchased them, or a girl came looking for them, but somebody else purchased them.
Well, Alphonse said that a woman had come in.
That she had been looking for books. Yeah, but she never did find out who actually purchased the books.
Okay, we just know that there was a girl looking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Sam knows.
I could have found out something if I had gotten near the damn desk, but no, of course I had to go into whatever that German word is. I don't even know if that's a German word, but whatever. And
Rotschreck.
Is that a German word?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
It means red fear.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I don't go. People don't go into a road trek a whole hell of a lot, but it's not good when they do.
Yeah, especially when I'm friggin', running down a whole, street. I'm like, I don't give any damns about the masquerade right now. I'm just like, whatever. I'm just gonna go running around with my fangs extended, being angry.
Yeah, that might have been worse than the fire.
I hope that didn't give us away, guys.
Oh, you mean
Jesus.
somebody coming in to burn down a building and then running around? I think we're good.
My bad. Good God.
I'll be right back.
Hard stop. We are going to be so discreet about this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that just went right out the window.
Discreet like a nuclear bomb.
I need coffee. I'll be right back.
It was so awesome still. Like, God, that just had everything. It was always, it was like a snowball effect. Like, oh my God, it's your son. Oh my God, you think this dude kidnapped him. Oh my God, you slammed him against. Okay, we're good. Oh wait, no, Robert flipped out. Oh fuck. Oh, we can't get the guy. Oh no, he's possessed. Oh, it's on fire. It's like, wow.
Yeah, I thought Robert was going to do the opposite, like, pull me back and be like, no, but no, that didn't happen. He was just like as crazy as me.
Yeah. And he is your ghoul.
Yeah, that's the curse, isn't it? It's the curse of it all.
Now we know why it's a curse.
Yeah. This poor little boy's gonna wake up at the estate that we all are gonna be staying in, like, so freaked out of his damn mind.
Dude, right?
God.
Scott, are you here?
He went to go get coffee.
Whew. That was intense, man. Way to play the game, though.
I guess she did learn that there's something going on there, though, because why would there be ghosts in there?
Oh yeah, that's got Giovanni written all over it.
Yeah, there's something that bookshop was being watched.
Yeah, I kind of knew with like his, the shopkeeper's like, nervousness and his shady, hurrying to get you out of the shop after you're asking about the book or books. But once you saw the spirits, I was like, oh my God, fucking Giovanni.
I thought that scene was cool.
Yeah, that kind of. Ugh.
That was one role that actually went my way.
In my mind, all those spirits, they look like Dementors. That's how I pictured it.
Yeah, I kind of think of that too.
Whew.
How do I heal Robert's hand? Do I just give him my blood?
Yeah, ghouls can use blood heal, but it's gonna take a lot.
Really? Like how much?
I think normally it's like 4 or 5 blood points to heal 1 point of ag.
Well, he only burnt his hand. I mean, how much damage can that be?
I don't know. But Michael said it went up his forearm, so I don't know, maybe 2. Hi, babe.
Hey, I was asking the guys how much it's gonna take to heal Robert's arm.
It's lethal to your ghoul, so he can heal it with your blood.
So
Oh,
I don't have to give him any blood?
Yeah, you might have to. Yeah,
Like how many?
I don't know. We'll see.
Good thing I didn't use any damn blood.
Well, you did for the presents.
Well, that's it. That's the only thing I used, though.
So
Whew.
Woof.
I'm back.
Yeah, I was really worried. I was like, and this is the moment where she could die. Soon as the building bursts into flames, you're like, final death is on the table.
Yeah, I'm surprised I didn't die.
We were just talking about Stefano and the boy, and Sam was like, "That poor boy." What'd you say, babe?
I said, I'm like, what's gonna happen? I'm gonna be brainwashing him into thinking he's Arnaldo. Like, you don't have a choice. You're my son. You're not Stefano. You're Arnaldo.
The true horror
Get
will
it
be
right.
you brainwash him into thinking that, and then you embrace him. And your humanity becomes 0.
Yeah, but I can't embrace.
What?
Didn't you listen to my thing? I can't embrace.
I must have missed that part.
Yeah, I took the flaw that she can't embrace anybody.
Huh.
She found out when she tried to embrace her son.
Yeah, he died.
Which makes this extra fucked up.
Oh, that's right. I remember that now.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was a flaw. I thought it was just like a dramatic moment.
Oh man.
Yeah, no, that was a legit flaw.
Yeah, wait till I tell you my Rokia's background, Scott. You're gonna love that.
All right, guys. So I think we're ready to get back into it. We're gonna open our next scene. We open our next scene in the shadow of flames dancing in the Roman night as we see Diego Vasquez and his ghoul, Alfonso Cordon. They have been walking from the Jewish quarter as they emerge into the streets of the Via Fortina. The two of you had been heading in the direction of Alfonso's bookshop, as of course that had been Alfonso's recommendation for your next stop. And of course it would be where Bianca and her ghoul husband, Robert Dispenser III, would be. However, as soon as you arrive, Diego, you see you see a sight of chaos. You see men running everywhere, holding buckets of water and trying to put out the fire as the bookshop has essentially gone up in flames. Legions of guards in breastplates and pikes gathered around to keep people at bay as a small crowd has gathered to see the flames that are burning out of control in the distance. Buckets of water being thrown onto the building and shouting, and just a scene of pure chaos as the camera focuses in on Diego and Alfonso.
Diego stops some distance from the fire, feeling the beast thrashing within him at the sight of it, even from far away. He tries to stop one of the men running to say, "What is the meaning of this?"
There's a fire in the bookshop, and we don't know what happened. Just stay there. Do not come near.
And he runs off with his
Wait!
bucket he's carrying is like sloshing water, despite your calling out after him.
Damn! Giulietta is in there. Bianca, he waves his hand.
If she is in there, Master, she will
Yes,
not be
I
coming
know.
out.
Alfonso.
He does interrupt him.
On silent.
Quickly, go. Try to find the others.
Alfonso nods.
Where will you be, Master?
Here.
Very well, very good.
And Alfonso, without another word, he turns off to swiftly walk off into the night and try to find some evidence of Bianca.
Diego will try to skirt the buildings to see if he can get a closer look, all the while fighting his fear.
All right, make a courage roll, difficulty 5, to see if you can step closer. You do manage to overcome your fear just a little, just enough to do what you mean to, Diego. Go ahead and describe it.
With the flames dancing in his eyes, he keeps his eyes planted on the what would have once been the exit to the building, hoping against hope that maybe he'll see some forms emerge through the flames, although he knows that Bianca's vampiric flesh could not handle that. Somewhere deep inside, anyway.
As you get close enough, Diego, you see the building beginning to sag to one side as the flames consume the timbers of the wooden walls. The beams themselves are the only reason that the building is still standing, and you can see through the wide windows that were previously open that the printing press inside is ablaze. The bookshelves topple over and they crash as countless tomes of volumes of tomes are lost in the blaze. Parchment and scrolls, they're all ash, as the fire continues to rage out of control from within.
Even seeing this fills him with pangs of regret, as he worked so hard to build a library in his own city. Lover of knowledge that he is, but it does not eclipse his fear that Bianca might have perished in that fire. He does try to question some of those around to see if anyone was known to have gotten out.
Sure. As you move among the crowd, Diego, make a... you can make a charisma subgroup. No. It's not in depth, so make a charisma expression roll as you canvas... Now let's do investigation. I'm sorry. Yeah, charisma investigation as you canvas the crowd. Difficulty will be 7. They're more focused on the fire than you.
Ooh.
You don't manage to get much out of the crowd. Most of the crowd are people who have just arrived, and the guards don't seem to be willing to talk to you at all. Most people just tell you to the guards just gruffly tell you to move on, and some of the people in the crowd say that there was a book merchant inside. They know him to be working late, but no one saw him leave his shop. He's presumed to be dead in the shop.
Feeling such a deep sadness, but not knowing what to do, Diego does step off to the side and obfuscates himself against one of the building walls to wait for his ghoul to return.
Do not actually wait long, Diego. You see Alfonso return to the spot where you were, although he can't see you. He's looking around, and you hear him whisper, "Master!" under his breath as he looks around wildly, trying to find you.
"I am here," Diego's voice says as he emerges from the shadows.
And as you materialize, Alfonso walks over to where you are and speaks in a swift, whispered voice.
"I have found evidence that Bianca, your kindred companion, has fled off into the night. Many of the others on this street saw her running away from the flames. They report that her eyes were wild and her teeth were bared like an animal. There are also whispers of a man who was carrying a boy following her. I know of the general direction in which they went."
And you can't help but marvel at the proficiency of your ghoul, Diego. That was, finding that out in such a short amount of time, 15, maybe 20 minutes of canvassing, is quite remarkable. And not for the first time, you're in surprise and awe at Alfonso's mental prowess.
The princely side of him thinks of what Juliet has done, what Bianca's done, obviously breaking the Masquerade in such a fashion, but that's a worry for later. He tells Alfonso, "You have done well. Take me then now."
Alfonso nods, and we see Diego and his ghoul turn to leave the streets of the Via Fortuna as they leave the flames far behind them, walking off in the direction of where Bianca and Robert were last seen. So it's at this moment that we change scene, as we go now to another district of Rome. As we go across the city towards a place that was mentioned earlier. This is in a part of Rome which is just opposite of the Corso, which runs directly through, and we see the archway of Augustus as four figures move along the streets. And they're walking quickly in the direction of a very loud looking building. From the street, the sounds of merriment can be heard from an inn, the Three Lions Inn, one of the most active inns in this part of Rome, at certainly this time of night. As you hear the occasional crash of earthenware crockery smashing against an unyielding cranium or floor. It appears to be a low-class establishment with delusions of gentrification. The Three Lions is a clearinghouse for mercenaries, caravan guards, and all other forms of hired muscle and steel. You actually heard this from the lips of Matteo as he walks alongside you, Gehrman, and also Valentino, who is in the company of his knifeman, Gabrin. He explained the nature of the Three Lions as you approach. Gabrin commented offhandedly that it sounds like his kind of place. From the front, the Three Lions seems to be a place for gentry. The facade is gray stone, while a gilt-lettered sign showing a trio of red heraldic lions tumbling together in play swings over the heavy doors. You can see a balcony projecting above the sign, and from beneath its white canopy overhead, beautiful women can usually be seen waving to the people outside in the streets. They're there to draw patrons into the Three Lions, showing their breasts occasionally and their cleavage, smiling and winking and calling out to the men, making vulgar promises to them as they walk by. You can hear strains of foreign conversation come wafting into the street from within. Snatches of Spanish, English, even German, and especially French, which is most widely spoken at this time. The camera focuses in on Valentino and Gehrman as they walk down the streets in the company of their ghouls, as we turn over the scene to them.
Valentino turns to Gehrman as they're walking, I assume side by side, to speak with them. What do you suppose we may find out here?
Hoping to find a fence of such an exotic good. It would not be easy for this thief to acquire this book, this trinket, especially in this day and age. Matters of the occult are taboo.
A fence. Valentino pauses to consider a moment what dealings he may have had with them in the past as they walk.
Matteo actually interrupts, speaking up here.
If the thief was looking to get out of Rome, he would have sought help here. Smuggling goods out of the city is not easy, and the kind of texts that we're after would have been highly censured by the church. This is something they would have wanted to hide.
My thoughts precisely. So we are looking for those who would dabble in and risk a great deal to be able to smuggle such a thing from the city.
And what are we seeing with Gehrman as he's walking alongside Matteo?
Gehrman seems to be walking very briskly. He seems to be dead set on getting to their destination with time to spare. But as he's walking, his leather straps are held tight as you can see the gleam of his sword on his back, and the French falchion underneath his cloak as he continues to trudge on down the cobbled streets.
He's gonna look back to Valentino. Does your man have some skills in this sort?
Valentino comes back from his thoughts to look back to Gehrman. Indeed, Gabrina and I have seen a number of dealings that may be relevant here. I suspect that perhaps the warehouses in the ports may be hiding what we are interested in if they mean to move this discreetly. At least that's what I would do.
Why the warehouses?
Mateo speaks up, looking over at you.
Giovanni, given their presence here, are likely to maintain warehouses and control such areas for their own purposes.
Mateo looks at you grimly, Gehrman, at the prospect of the Giovanni being behind this theft.
Gehrman shares a small glance with Mateo before turning back to Valentino.
Have you had many dealings with them since our time?
I do not deal with the Giovanni, but my business has been of the worst kind, I'm afraid. I am quite certain this may bear fruit.
Well, enough talk. Let us go in.
See that one? Gabrine motions to one of the beautiful women on the balcony overhead, a few yards off.
Goodness, she could feed 1,000 infos tits of hers, eh?
He nudges Mateo in the ribs, who gives him a black look.
Gehrman is going to glare at Gabrine, but speaking to Valentino.
I hope he will not prove a problem.
I have been able to rely on him for quite some time now. He turns to Gabrine. Perhaps while you're in there you may find one of my type. You know the kind.
Ah, relax. I am very well practiced in subtlety,
Gabrine spins a knife in his fingers skillfully with a wicked smile.
If we could, my lord.
Mateo speaks up.
I've learned from my condottiero contacts in this city that the owner is one Thomas Frascatore. He has a strict no firearms or steel rule within his establishment, which he often maintains with a brace of loaded pistols, I hear, kept behind the counter. However, mere flesh-on-flesh mayhem is tolerated, if not encouraged. He collects fee on all of the condottiero that do business in his establishment, and many factors who come here to hire know that this is the place for mercenaries. Over the years, various mercs and merchants have attempted to avoid paying Frascatore his commission, and invariably they've found floating face down in the Tiber the next morning. This is not a place to draw attention to ourselves.
Valentino looks over to Mateo. Perhaps the two of you could investigate the warehouses while I have a heart-to-heart with this man.
Master, Gabrine protests, motioning to the women. Have I not earned this?
Valentino looks to Gabrine and then he looks over to Gehrman. What do you feel you would be more equipped to handle or suited for this evening, Gehrman?
Gehrman crosses his arms, one hand over his mouth as his head tilts in consideration.
I am more suited for battle. I will accompany Mateo to the warehouses, see if they truly are within the Giovanni's grasp.
Valentino turns back to Gabrine and pats him on the side of the arm. You see, no fear, you shall come with me.
Gabrine relaxes a bit.
Yes, of course. This doesn't look like their kind of place anyway. They're a bit stiff, eh?
Gabrine grins good-naturedly at Gehrman and Mateo. Mateo does not smile back.
Shall we, Master?
Gabrine looks at you, Valentino.
Valentino nods and looks at Gehrman again. Be careful.
Of course. You as well.
Before he quickly sweeps his cape and heads off towards the docks and the warehouses.
And ever faithful, Mateo is right on your heels, keeping his head down somewhat as he raises the hood of his own cloak and follows after you. You're left alone with your ghoul, Gabrine, Valentino.
Valentino nods silently to Gabrine as he leads the way to this establishment.
All right, and with that, we're going to change scene as Valentino and Gabrine head inside the Three Lions. We open our next scene to a very rowdy interior. As you leave the street of Rome and you step inside, you see right away, Valentino, that the illusion of class slowly fades once one enters the Three Lions. Booted, bladed, and pistoled mercenaries slouch at the bar around the thick oaken tables. Attractive women, many of whom are obviously prostitutes, flit about the room or drape themselves across patrons. The mead in the ale is flowing, as well as the wine. Serving women, silhouetted by the fireplace against the back wall, flit back and forth carrying trays of earthenware mugs and ducking the unwanted attentions and groping hands of lecherous drinkers. To the right, a polished staircase reaches up to the second floor. If you observing the stairs, Valentino, you immediately notice couples ascending, and usually with some urgency. And occasionally you see a man who rise with a companion will stumble back downstairs all alone. Behind the bar is the towering form of Signore Frascatore, a great bear of a man with a curling black beard and arms like tree branches. He's wearing a wine-stained apron and surveying the relative peace and quiet of his establishment, at least when circumstances do not force him to reach for the weapons that must be stowed below the bar, if Mateo's information is correct. And you think it's fitting that Frascatore smiles, as his percentage at all these mercenaries and their jobs must be very high indeed. And you know enough about finance to know that Frascatore is doing very well here. The camera turns back to you, Valentino, as you enter in with Gabrine, who is grinning manically, looking around.
Ah, this is the part of Rome I wanted to see,
As he claps a hand on your shoulder.
Valentino pats his hand and returns the grin. Why don't you see who you can find around here who might be to my liking, while you are also finding your own,
Ah, very well, my master. I shall find someone for you.
Gabrine grins.
I cannot promise she won't be well used, eh?
Well, he looks around. I understand what conditions we are in. But before he goes, he'll lean in close to Gabrine. Be ready. Do not go far.
Certainly, certainly. I think I will start with the ladies over there.
And with that, Gabrine smirks and begins walking off towards where the women who are clearly prostitutes, linger around the stairs waiting for patrons to approach them. With that, you were left alone, Valentino, to canvass the room.
At this point, Valentino is going to consider, given his knowledge of shady dealings and streetwise in the past, what the best way to perhaps approach Signore Frascatore about asking about fences, as that's not exactly a legal trade, and he doesn't want to fumble in finding out how to meet this man.
All right, go ahead and make an intelligence streetwise roll. Difficulty will be 6. It's relatively straightforward. All right, I'll relay the results of that. All right.
All right. After a moment's thought, Valentino steps up to the counter where Signore Frescatore is, and leans in friendly and in a relaxed way. Good evening, Signor Frescatore, is it?
Ah, hello, my friend, he bellows from behind the bar. What is your name that you would know mine? But of course, you might know my name. I have so many friends here. Ah.
He gestures to all the mercenaries in the room and the patrons, as well as the prostitutes.
Valentino smiles in a very relaxed manner. Yes, you seem to be doing very well for yourself, Signore. I am Valentino de Vaia, from Genoa, Italy. I'm interested in perhaps some of the trade that others may frown on. What have you been trading in most recently, my friend?
Genoa, you say, huh? Well,
Frescatore scratches his beard as he looks you over. Go ahead and make a manipulation manipulation streetwise, difficulty 7.
you must be a serious man to be approaching me. Speaking of such things, Valentino de Vaia. But that is good, that is good. I deal with serious people in my business. And you look like a man who has gold, eh?
He grins greedily.
Valentino returns the grin, knowing these kind of men would not be here if I didn't have any.
Well then, my friend.
You see Frescatore rub his index finger to his thumb as he reaches out a hand to you.
He returns, reaching his hand out to clasp the man.
Oh no, you immediately recognize the indication that you should pay him. You should give him something for the information you're looking.
Oh, he brings out several coins for the man's trouble.
And he looks at the coins.
Ah, very generous, Signor Valentino. Very good. Well, Signore, I do a brisk business in the exports of certain goods that the Pope would not approve of. You know, these times they call for all manner of business. And it's my understanding that the only caravans moving out of Rome this time of year actually have been going up north. There's a little factor. What is his name? I forget. Been in my place very recently, looking for many mercenaries to come with him. Pays very well, better than any of the other factors that come in this place. I forget his name, but the only one who did not take the job is sitting over there. Entwistle, I think his name is. Toby. Some British man. A deserter from the army, I think.
And at this, Signore Frescatore, he motions to a man, which you can see through the crowd. He's kind of sitting alone at one of the tables.
Valentino's going to try and gauge this man as he says that he did not remember him and look for the signs of deceit.
Okay. Go ahead and roll your perception empathy. Difficulty 7. He seems to be fairly genuine, and I should say that Signore Frescatore is a man of tremendous charisma. He's just very boisterous and very seems very straightforward in his dealings with you.
Valentino maintains his smile as he looks the man over, but unsatisfied with his ability to pierce this man's veil of boisterousness, he's going to resort to the gifts he has, just to be on the safe side, as he re-engages this man. That's unfortunate, Signore Frascatore. You are certain you cannot tell me who this man is? And on that command, he's going to attempt to dominate this man and see if he can tell him to give up the name.
All right, which level of dominator are you going to use?
1 command.
All right, so which word are you using as you say that?
Tell, as in tell me the name of the man.
All right, roll your manipulation intimidation. It will be difficulty 5. As you captivate his eyes and you give this command, Valentino, and you can feel the power of your blood come to the fore, and you command him to tell you, Frascatore's eyes glass over for a moment as he looks into your eyes, and
I do not remember. I swear I did not know his name.
as he just comes tumbling out of his mouth before he can seem to stop himself.
I do not know his full name. I think it is Bernini. Ah, what?
He shakes his head.
What was that? My head.
He reaches up to hold his head.
Are you alright, sir? You seemed lost in a trance of some kind. I think you should have a drink. I'm going to go speak to this man Entwistle you mentioned. Thank you very much for your time, Signore Frascatore. Hope you have a pleasant evening. And before the man can give a response, he's going to turn to leave.
That's how you leave Frascatore, kind of holding his head and looking confused. And as you turn and walk through the crowds, ducking a fight on your way over to Toby that is broke out, and also a couple of barmaids coming back and forth, you see Toby Entwistle sitting at that nearby table near the center of the room. And you get a good look at the man as you get closer. Toby Entwistle is a stork-like man with very long arms. He seems to be made of stilts and straw. Possessing an angular, scarred face and a shock of brown hair, the mercenary looks to have seen all the barbarity that this world has to offer. His boots are black and scuffed, and his gear, while of good quality, looks worn. A pair of pistols are stuck through his belt, and a wicked-looking knife is tucked into the top of one boot. There are wine stains on his white shirt and black breeches, and many rents in his clothing have been stitched up carefully. As you approach Toby, you can see that he's sitting alone at a table in the center of the room. He sits pondering his drink, and as you approach the table, one of the serving women will approach him. "You want another, Toby?" He shakes his head and motions with a hand.
I barely have any coin to pay for my current round, love.
The barmaid shakes her head.
Oh, Entwistle, you should have taken the Switzerland job.
As she turns to walk off, and that's about the time you approach Valentino.
If he's within speaking range, before she got too far, he would interrupt her and kind of call out, "Why don't you go ahead and bring that drink for him? You can put it on my tab." As he walks up and looks at Toby, making a way for him to sit down beside him.
The waitress actually turns to look at you with some surprise. She's very voluptuous, very pretty. Maybe even works upstairs, you think, for a moment. But she does nod and sweeps off to go get the drink. Toby looks at you from across the table as you take a seat with kind of bleary-eyed. He's clearly a little bit drunk, not quite there all the way.
And who are you that you'd be buying me drinks?
Just a passerby, friend. Signore Frascatore mentioned that you may have crossed paths with a man I'm interested in. Some man, perhaps by the name of Benini.
All right, go ahead and roll a manipulation subterfuge roll. Difficulty 6.
This is my specialty apply.
Yes, it does. Whoa. All right, and as soon as you tell him that, Toby seems to relax, even though you can tell the name has set him on edge.
Bernini. Ferrante, that was the man who... Yeah, he was coming through here looking for mercenaries, fighters, fighting men, to come with him on some sort of caravan up north. He's been through here quite a few times hiring, but
He gets a slightly grim look on at his face.
it's supposedly some sort of milk run to Basel. Have you heard of Basel?
No, I'm not familiar with the name.
Basel is some Swiss town up north, in the Alps, far north, what divides Italy and Germany. And
He takes a moment as the waitress approaches again, and she pours some dark, yeasty contents into his mug, and he thanks her as she turns to sweep away again. He takes a moment to gulp down the contents.
well, the amount the man offered was ludicrous. The trip had some sort of special conditions attached, right? And travel was to only be by night. The cargo was delicate, rare books, I think, something like that, if I remember correctly. The owner of the books would also be part of the party, and he was never named. I don't know. The way that Bernini smiled when he mentioned him made my skin crawl. Besides, I'd seen this particular factor hiring for the same run earlier this year, once or twice. But you know,
And at this, Toby leans forward with his mug in his hand.
I couldn't remember seeing any of the men who'd signed on ever again. Now, they could have found other assignments in Basel, maybe even gone on to Germany or France, but surely at least one of them would have returned to Rome, hence to the Three Lions. If you're condottiero, you come to the Three Lions.
As he sits back in his seat, he seems to finish gulping down more of his mug.
Valentino keeps his eyes on the man, looking empathically and listening, shaking and nodding his head at what the man says. I see. And so this Bernini Verante, he always came here. You do not know where else he may have been staying in the meantime.
No, not that I... Well,
He pauses for a moment.
he seemed to have some sort of benefactors, some very... He must be, if he was offering so much. I know it was not his money. He was a factor, a client, whatever you want to call it in this part of the country, this part of Europe.
He blinks his blurred eyes as he tries to focus, taking another drink from his mug.
I know he has some kind of ring on his finger, some kind of G on it. I don't know. He claimed to represent some very rich people, and I have no doubt of that, but like I said, he was tall and wearing white and black. He had blue eyes. I remember a rapier swung at his hip. His clothing was very rich. And that silver ring, yes, very thick, Had some kind of G on it. I don't know. He was Northern Italian, though he spoke excellent French.
He trails off.
Valentino pauses to think in the past. Does this sound like Claudius Giovanni to Valentino?
You don't remember Claudius having blue eyes, but and Claudius was a little shorter than this man seems to be describing, but the band with the stylized G on it you would recognize. That is the crest of House Giovanni, now Clan Giovanni, these nights. You don't know if it would be Claudius, but it was certainly someone connected to the Giovanni that Toby is describing.
Valentino leans back and looks down at the desk to consider the man's words and what they may mean.
And as you sit there considering, suddenly one of the other bar patrons call out. They seem to have overheard your conversation.
You talk about Bernini?
He calls out over the crowd, and Toby twists around. Aye! The bar patron calls back.
It always seemed to get colder when he was in here.
And immediately he's shouted down by good-natured ribbing as the crowd mocks him for being a milk drinker and a coward. And he curses at them before the bar patron turns away from you and goes back to his drink.
Seeing that this man, Toby, seems to be done, and that this other man does remember some other details, he brings out a few coins and lays them on the table and knocks on the wood as he begins to get up. Thank you very much, Mr. Toby. Appreciated your insight.
Yeah. Let me ask you, sir. These coins are fine. I appreciate your consideration, but I'll have drunk these away in a week. Perhaps even lost them in the thighs of some girl. I don't suppose you have more steady work. You don't understand my hardships. Valentino, that was your name? I think I heard you saying something to Frascatore. That's your name, right?
Very perceptive for how many drinks you're in. I may have some work for you in the coming days. He pauses to almost correct himself. But tonight I'm just passing by. Will you be...
No, you don't understand. I've been on the right side of the law, I've been on the wrong side of the law. As a guard, I'm just risking my neck to help some fat, rich merchants get fatter and richer. And as a highwayman, I had to sleep out with the wolves and the bears, just to get risked shot stealing some noble brat's snotty handkerchief. I need some steady work. Surely you need a man to watch your back, eh? Clearly you can pay well, and you're better than old Suicide Bernini. All the men I saw go to him never came back.
He trails off grumbling as he looks down at his mug.
Valentino's standing, but he's stopping to look at the man. Signor Frascatore, why does he not hire you?
Frascatore he's a pimp. He don't hire nothing, he just takes a little bit from our jobs that we get here. But he owns the place, it's his privilege, and nobody doesn't pay up. Those people disappear real quick.
Well, I'll tell you what, Toby. Let me go speak with Frascatore and make sure there are no extra jobs that he might not be able to have for you. You have been very helpful this evening. I'm feeling quite helpful myself. He offers a smile and moves to return to Frascatore.
Entwistle nods.
Suit yourself. Of course, I know the route that Bernini would have went.
He trails off as he looks away from you and takes another drink from his mug.
Valentino pauses at this, and he turns back. You know the route, do you?
Toby pauses for a moment before turning back to look at you and smiling with his stained teeth up at you.
Caught your attention, did I? Well, I might. It's dangerous, though.
He looks down at his mug.
You hear rumors up there in the mountains. A story.
He trails off, and there's a very grim look on his face.
What kind of rumors, Toby?
Well, stories about a monastery. They call it the Black Monastery.
He drops his voice in a whisper so that others won't be able to hear him. And you actually have to lean in close to hear what he's saying.
At this, Valentino will take a seat by him again.
Toby leans in as he drops his voice a bit in a much more dire and dramatic whisper.
There's stories of a black monastery up in those mountains, in the Alps. Supposedly in the wilderness, somewhere around Brothel. Stories that...
He pauses for a moment, and then he says,
all the monks there are vampires. Blood drinkers, the undead, That they all sodomize each other. They perform the black mass and they spit on a cross. That's the story, anyway.
He shrugs.
But I know that Bernini was looking to a caravan to head up that way. That's why I wouldn't go. All of the men that Bernini have hired have never been seen again.
Tell you what, Toby. If you can show me the path that Bernini took, there'd be quite a bit of coin in it for you. But only after we arrive.
Go ahead and make a charisma leadership roll. Difficulty 7.
Does this specialty apply?
Yes, it does. Toby swallows hard and then looks back down at his mug.
Well, it's a job, I guess.
He tips the mug back and drains it completely before looking at you.
You got yourself a deal, Mr. Devaya. You just let me know when you're ready to leave. I'll be here, getting good and drunk. I'm gonna need it.
He reaches out and grasps the coins that you left him, and he tucks them in his pocket.
Valentino gives him a nod and a slight bow, and then he turns to see if he can find Gabrine.
Actually, at that moment, Gabrine calls out across the crowd, "Master!" He motions in your direction, and you see that he is in the company of a young girl. You can't see her very well from across the room, but they're standing by the stairs.
He'll make his way over and see what his companion has gotten himself into.
And as you approach Gabrine, you see that he is standing with a young girl. Child, really. She's very, very young. And as you look at her, you see that she's still a child in many ways, a fine-boned girl with long blonde hair and the blue eyes of someone who's from the northern Po Valley. She's fragile and delicate, and it's impossible to mistake her for a girl of any more than, like I said, 15 years, if that. A child first coming into her womanhood.
This is Lucinda,
Gabrine says as he motions to the young girl. She's very pale. Her complexion is actually so pale that her veins can be traced through her skin, wearing a simple brown gown that shows off her charms more by accident than by design. Some of the other prostitutes have actually hung back to watch you and Gabrine stand there with Lucinda. Go ahead and make a perception streetwise roll. Difficulty 7. All right, I've relayed the results of that roll.
So he did notice the other prostitute standing back, but that's what his conclusion was.
Yep.
Valentino raises an eyebrow at Gabrine. And more so than anything, he's off-put by the clear youth in this girl. Even though it wouldn't be terribly uncommon for prostitutes to be younger during this time, his thoughts turn to his sister and his niece from so long ago, and the thought is sickening to him of even a 15-year-old being with a man like Gabrine. And he turns to Gabrine, and his head turns to the side in a somewhat discouraging and disappointed look, and he's not hiding this as he looks to Gabrine.
Gabrine looks back at you.
Well, I thought that perhaps you could, take her up the stairs, and have a talk, huh?
His eyebrows wiggle up and down.
Valentino,
And you notice that Lucinda is actually staring down at her feet.
deciding to lead this girl away from Gabrine, he relents. Find someone older. I will take her away. And he maintains a pretty serious expression as he looks at Gabrine, but he takes this girl by the hand and leads her away up the stairs.
Master. Bernini reaches out or not Bernini, but Gabrine reaches out and takes you by the arm real quick and leans in.
I heard the name Bernini at the bar. Yes?
Valentino stops, looking sidelong, and nods quietly.
Well, I've been asking around these working girls. Lucinda was Bernini's regular girl.
His eyes go wide and he smirks a little.
You see what I mean?
Valentino stops and then looks back at the girl and then returns to Gabrine. Well done. I will talk with her.
You do that, master, he says, his voice suddenly full volume again as he slaps you on the back good-naturedly.
I'm going to find a real salty, ripe whore in here, eh? Someone that you can really taste for days afterwards.
He turns around and swaggers off to head back to some of the other women that are hanging back.
Valentino looks to Lucinda for any change in expression or really anything at all in her face.
Lucinda is actually looking down at her feet, but she reaches up and takes you by the hand with her delicate hands and murmurs, "Follow me, my lord," as she leads you up the stairs. Somewhat awkwardly, you notice.
Valentino allows her to lead him.
All right, and as she leads you upstairs, we're going to change scene. Find the right music. There we go. As you ascend the stairs and climb to the second floor of the Three Lions, you see that they're tacky rather than expensive. They're decorated in a poor man's idea of what a rich man's home might look like. You see a half dozen rooms line the hallway, 3 on each side. Lucinda leads you at one end of the hall on the left and steps inside to the room. As you pass with her against the other doors, you can hear strange sounds hearing from within the other rooms. Cries of pleasure or pain, or the occasional crack of a whip against flesh, or the breaking of a glass. Once inside the candlelit room, Lucinda closes the door behind the two of you and immediately shrugs herself out of her clothing and stands, pale and yet somehow modest, before the rumpled bed, which is just a few feet away. She stands before you naked, but attempts to cover up the left side of her neck, purposely moving her hair to drape over the side of her shoulder. You see that she's kind of covering up her breasts, and there's a bit of modesty about her still. And she proceeds to sort of pathetically tempt you towards the bed, not practiced in being sensual or sexual at all. She merely reaches out and tries to indicate that you should come with her to the bed.
Valentino, standing the entire time, he would initially try and stop this girl from disrobing, but if she insisted, he would simply take the cloth and throw it back to her and ask her to sit.
She looks at you confused, holding her rumpled dress in her hand. But she, after a moment, obeys, slipping the dress back over her body.
Why are we up here? If you do not want...
She trails off.
What happened to your neck, young lady?
She looks a little surprised that you seem to have noticed her covering up that side of her neck, but she shakes her head.
Nothing?
And looks down.
Using the full extent of his charms and sensuality, he'll walk slowly over and bring his hand up to brush the hair away across her neck and back so that he can see.
No amount of charm or sensuality seems to work on Lucinda as she freezes up and goes very stiff at your hand as you reach out to touch her, and she purposely turns away from your touch to hold her hair over her neck.
If you don't want anything, you should just leave,
she murmurs, not even looking at you.
Why do you seem so frightened?
She doesn't answer you, staring at the floor.
Valentino, looking perplexed, brings his hand up under her chin and lifts her face up so that their eyes meet, and again will make use of the gifts of Cain to bring answers from this girl.
She seems pliant enough to meet your eyes.
Tell me what happened to your neck.
All right, which dominator are you using?
Again, 1.
All right, roll your manipulation intimidation. Your difficulty will be 4. The minute your eyes lock with her and you command her to tell you what she knows, she immediately moves her hair out of the way, and you see her throat. You see the left side of her neck is a shameful area that she's clearly very ashamed of, but she reveals to you anyway. You'll see that it's been savagely bitten and shows signs of scarification. It looks horrible. bruises that were days and days old and yet fresh at the same time, as though someone has been biting her neck regularly. The tooth marks are undoubtedly human, that you can see. Black and bruised and with, bursted blood vessels very close to the surface, as though someone has drawn blood on her regularly. And you see the scabs on her neck. Bernini, she quickly spills out as she speaks. He purchases my attentions and forces me to bare my throat to his teeth. When he laps it up and takes his pleasures from me. But the blood will always come first. The blood always comes first. The one time I refused him, Frascatore forced me to go upstairs with that factor. The man's employer is of extraordinary means. Frascatore did not want to lose the riches that would come from commissions that Bernini gives. He always bites me, and he draws my blood, and then he does it, she says without emotion.
I'm sorry, I got interrupted in real life, so I only heard the very first couple bits of that.
Okay, essentially she has said that Bernini would purchase her attentions and then forces her to bare her throat to him, and then he would bite her with his dull teeth, and when the blood finally does flow, he laps it up greedily and then proceeds to rape her. The one time she tried to refuse him, Frascatore made her go upstairs.
Valentino's his eyes narrow in disgust as he looks at this girl. And how frequently does he return to this establishment?
Every few nights. I know he works somewhere else. I don't know otherwise what he does. I know he's been hiring men.
You expect him to return in a few nights then?
I don't know. He said he was leaving soon. That he hired a bunch of men. That was the last time he came to see me. That he would be gone. The only man who refused was downstairs. But others came with him. He had some sort of shipment. I don't know anything about it. I only know that he said he wouldn't be back for a long time, but that he was going to be hungry when he came back.
And with this, a hollow look of horror dawns in her eyes as she speaks of it.
Valentino retrieves a pouch of coins from within his wine-red cloak and puts it in the girl's hand, in her hands, as he looks into her eyes and begins to give a detailed subjugation. You are going to take these coins and leave this establishment. You're going to walk to the farthest end of this city and leave as soon as you possibly can to start a new life. You will do this tonight.
All right, and that is going to be Mesmerize.
Yes.
Roll your manipulation leadership, difficulty 4.
He's going to be spending a willpower on this because he is intent on this happening.
Okay. So that is 6 successes. The moment your eyes lock with hers, you feel your centuries-old power come to the fore, Valentino, as you seize this child, this woman child's eyes in your own, and you see her jaw go slightly slack, and the expression on her face relax as she wordlessly closes her delicate hands around the bag of coin that you give her. And she nods very slowly as you speak and enunciate the words, as though holding on to every one, saying, I will go. I will go and start a new life. She nods and seems to take your commands and agree with them completely.
Seeing this, Valentino will stand upright again and straighten his cloak and leave the girl to return downstairs.
As you step out of the room, leaving behind Lucinda, Valentino, and as you walk away, the last thing you saw of her was her blank stare as she slowly had begun looking down at what was in her hand as you close the door behind you and walk back towards the stairs. As you leave, Valentino, make a conscience roll. Difficulty is going to be 7. You regain a point of humanity as you feel confident in what you have done here tonight. You feel as though you've truly done some good. And as you get back in touch with that side of you which had been lost for so long, and yet now you finally have done something real, go ahead and describe what Valentino is feeling as he's walking away.
As Valentino makes his way down these stairs back to the brothel, he knows that over the last 2 centuries there's been a battle within him over his morality, and he's been losing that battle since his night leaving from Genoa. And this girl brought back this memory of his sister and his niece, and he suddenly feels ill and disgusted by the establishment he's in, and even by some of the way he's lived his own life in these last few decades.
And as you walk away, you feel something inside you that you didn't know was empty before. Some part of it is full again. You feel satisfied in what you've done, and you don't know what is in store for Lucinda the prostitute, but you know that you have done more to help her tonight than perhaps anyone has ever done in her life, which was short, so short and full of violence. And the only one on your mind that you can think of is the masquerade breaking rapist, Bernini. As you're walking towards the stairs, you pass Gabrine, who is currently in the arms of some dark-haired whore. She looks Sicilian from the looks of her, and they're laughing drunkenly. Gabrine has begun to drink as well. He's bringing a cup with him, and he sees you looking up just in time.
Ah, master! Well, you come to join us, eh?
Valentino has a dead serious and sullen face, not immediately looking up at Gabrine as he approaches. He puts a hand on Gabrine's shoulder. I have no taste for this evening, and I have the information we need. We are leaving.
Leaving?
And at that, the whore actually stops, and she snaps, I will still get paid, right? You cannot leave now.
Hold on. Silence.
He raises a hand to her.
Be quiet.
And then turns to look back at you.
Master, can we not stay for an hour or 2?
No. We are leaving.
His face falls with disappointment. But despite not wanting to go, he nods.
Yes, master.
You would listen to your employer over me? The prostitute immediately says, snapping at Gabrine. Gabrine, however, you see a flash of rage in his face as he turns around, and he belts her across the face. She crumples to the ground as he stands over here. Shut up, you fucking whore! As he looks down at her and raises his fist again, and she flinches. She cries out, crumpled on the hallway floor. What does Valentino do?
Actually, if Valentino was fast enough, he was going to move to command this woman to just leave.
Well, you're not fast enough to do that, but you are fast enough to stop him from hitting her again.
He stands in the way and grabs at Gabrine's arm to lower it. Not tonight, Gabrine.
Gabrine is thoroughly chastised as he lowers his fist and throws an ugly glare at the prostitute behind you, who is crumpled on the floor. She's holding her face, and she says, I will tell Frascatore about this. You'll never work in this fucking tavern again.
Valentino leans down to the woman to meet her gaze.
She flinches away from you, looking at you with hatred and distrust.
As soon as he does have her eyes, he's going to subjugate her as well. You will not tell anyone. You had an unfortunate evening where you dissatisfied a man in bed, and he was so displeased that he struck you, but you decided not to tell anyone, nor Signore Frascatore, for fear of losing business at your failure, and so you will remain silent.
What are you talking about? She says as she looks up at you. I know what I saw. I know what happened to me. And this causes you to pause. Clearly your power has failed for some reason. Out of character, I will say that you don't have the ability to shape memories quite yet. You're not that advanced in your use of Dominate.
He will only stick to telling this woman that she will not tell anyone.
All right, go ahead and roll your wit subterfuge. Manipulation leadership, difficulty 5. Yeah, the minute your eyes hit her and you enunciate the statement commanding her not to tell anyone, her eyes go glassy and she nods quickly. I won't tell anyone. And then she flinches away as if expecting you to hit her again. Or expecting you to hit her.
Valentino raises and looks angrily at Gabrine. We are leaving now.
No fun. Gabrine mutters, but he does follow after you. You know that he will follow your commands to the letter.
And he leads Gabrine out of the establishment.
And with that, the camera fades as Valentino and Gabrine leave the Three Lions Inn. So with that, guys, we're at the 3-hour mark. Like I said, I know the session was going to be a little short tonight. I'm sorry to cut it short, but it's like 5 o'clock. This is where we stop tonight. So I know I kind of want to keep going, but I gotta cut it here. So everybody did great. Daniel, Scott, sorry you guys didn't get a lot of opportunity to role play tonight. I promise I'm going to rectify that next week. But everybody did good, and so we're going to get an experience point for everyone. So go ahead and award yourself an experience point each for participation. And before we go on to vote for Role Player of the Night, I'd like to get your guys' thoughts on the role play and the story so far. Like your thoughts on tonight's session and where things are going.
I'm quite pleased with it, honestly.
Cool.
I mean, I have not had any disappointments yet.
That's good. I try to. Yeah, I'm sorry to cut it short.
Yeah, overall, I feel like it's been pretty organic, and I like it a lot. I'm pretty pleased.
All right, cool. How about you, Daniel? You hanging in there?
Yeah, I'm having a great time. Um, I think the story is going good. There's a lot of mystery shrouding what's actually going on here in Rome, and I'm having a great time watching all of us try to figure it out.
Yeah, that's one of the cool parts is you guys are all split up and kind of doing your own thing to uncover, the different clues. I expected you guys to go around as a group, but that's pretty cool that you guys like split up to cover more ground. But unfortunately, it does lead us to like splitting scenes, and like I said, Scott and Daniel didn't get to play a lot this week. That's just because we had to split up scenes and stuff, and today was kind of impromptu scheduled anyway.
But man, we had a couple lines, but we nailed it.
Yeah.
Good job, Scott.
And that's why I'm putting myself up for Role Player of the Night. Thank you.
All right. So with that, let's go around. Let's do round robin for best role play of the week. Like I said, it's Daniel and Scott didn't get a lot of airtime this week, but they still did good. So
we're with you in spirit.
Who are you voting for, Daniel?
I'm gonna vote for Sam. For just the reaction of finding her son in there, and just, the chaos that ensued. It was by far the most entertaining thing in this session, I think.
Cool. Scott, who did you enjoy tonight?
I'm going for Sam too. That was just too awesome.
Yeah, like it was a fail, but still, it was still really cool, and who knows? It might not be a complete fail, but it was organic, and it was very, very cool to watch.
Awesome. Okay. Well, Sam, how about you? Who are you voting for this week?
I'm gonna vote for Zufar. Because he did really great roles. Total opposite of my night. So yeah, he got lots of information, which is a plus for all of us in the end. So at least one of us, had a good night.
All right. How about you, Vukar? Who did you enjoy?
Oh yeah, I'll make it unanimous. Sam was pretty entertaining, dealing with a really rapidly deteriorating situation, but she made it through it.
Awesome. All right, Sam, you get another experience point tonight. Everyone loved watching you roll them botches.
Everybody loved watching you screw up. Thanks, guys.
It was entertaining.
Yeah, no, on a serious note, I really did enjoy your scene, Sam, even though it didn't go as well as you might think. Like, it was very cool. It was very dramatic. I had fun. Definitely, I think Vukar deserves a definite honorable mention tonight, because I think it was really cool, him with the prostitute Lucinda. That was a little side of Valentino's human side that we haven't seen in quite some time.
Yeah, I did not see that coming at all.
That was cool. It was good because it was like between Giulietta or Bianca and Valentino, there's like this contrast between things not going the way you want and things going exactly the way you want. Like,
Valentino worked that tavern like a freaking puppet, dude.
Oh yeah, he went in there with just subtlety and just minor dominates in the right spots and got exactly what he needed to know. He came out of there with a ton of information.
On that note, success does need to be rewarded. Vukar, you get an additional experience point tonight for your success in the Three Lions. Because I really feel like you did well, and got in touch with a little bit of your humanity while you were at it. And you definitely found out an important name, Bernini Ferrante, and you now know that he was in the employ of the Giovanni.
Nice, thank you.
All right, cool, guys. So unless there are any last-minute thoughts, questions, concerns?
Nope.
Nope.
I think we're all ready.
All right, cool. So I'll see you guys next week, and great session tonight. Good job, guys.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right, cool. See you next week.
Later,
See ya.
guys.